Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, 20, Text 22. We are hearing Nārada Muni's experience. He's saying what he did after the devotees left, and then how he was having ecstatic symptoms. He saw the Lord, he couldn't see him anymore, and he heard the Lord was speaking to him. So Narad Muni was feeling like, somebody finds a great treasure and then loses it. Sakrit yad darshitam rupam.
Sakrit
Yadarchitam Rupam
Etat kamaya te nakaha.
Etat kamaya
Kamayate Nagaha
naga.
Mat kama shanake sadhu.
Mat Kama Sanakaye Sadhu
Sarvan munchati rikchayan.
Sarvan
Sarvan
Munyachati
munchati
Richayan.
richyan.
Would someone like to read?
Yeah, I can read.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Translation. O virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. Purpose. A living being cannot be vacant of desires. He is not a dead stone. He must be working, thinking, feeling, and willing. But when he thinks, feels, and wills materially, he becomes entangled. And conversely, when he thinks, feels, and wills for the service of the Lord, he becomes gradually freed from all entanglement. The more a person is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, the more he acquires a hankering for it. That is the transcendental nature of godly service. Material service has satiation, whereas spiritual service of the Lord has neither satiation nor end. One can go on increasing his hankerings for the loving transcendental service of the Lord, and yet he will not find satiation or end. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of the Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in His service because His service and His person are identical. The sincere devotee should go on with sincere service of the Lord. The Lord will give proper direction as to how and where it has to be done. There was no material desire in Narada, and yet, just to increase his intense desire for the Lord, he was so advised.
So he could see Krishna at that time, but then suddenly he couldn't see him anymore. So just momentarily he could see. And now he's hearing Krishna speaking to him. So Krishna is telling him, it's just to increase your desire for me. You'll feel more eagerness. And in this way, you will come sooner to me. So Prabhupada is pointing out desires. We say, oh, I want to give up all desires. I want to become desireless. But at no point is that possible for us because we are spirit souls. We are conscious and we are eternal. So we will eternally be having desires. But what we have to do is change our desires. Right now, our desires are to be in the material world. But we need to change this desire to be with Krishna, to be in the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, Prabhupada is pointing out that material service, we get, we do something and after some time we are like, okay, enough now. I don't want to do it anymore. But devotional service, the bliss that one feels goes on increasing. So the more one serves, the Lord, the more happier one feels. And there is no end to such service. It goes on eternally. And it keeps on increasing. So one may say, oh my God, but I'll get so tired. Just we get tired materially. No, there's no tiredness. It's susukham kartam avyayam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Devotional service is joyfully performed and it is eternal. So engaging in service of the Lord means being with Him. Krishna is on the absolute platform, so there is no difference. So we can see the pure devotee, he's always with the Lord, always with Krishna. So here to increase Nārada's desire, to increase that great eagerness, Krishna first came in front of him and then he disappeared. Satse yadir kayapi.
Tat sevaya dirgaya e.
Jata mai mati.
Jata maidrita mati.
Itva vadyam imam lokam.
Hitva vadyam imam lokam.
Ganta maj janatam asi. Janatam asi.
Ganta maj janatam asi. Translation. By service of the Absolute Truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Purport. Serving the Absolute Truth means rendering service unto the Absolute Personality of Godhead and under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, who is a transparent medium between the Lord and the neophyte devotee. The neophyte devotee has no ability to approach the Absolute Personality of Godhead by the strength of his present imperfect material senses, and therefore, under the direction of the spiritual master, he is trained in transcendental service of the Lord. And by such training, even for some days, the neophyte devotee gets intelligence in such transcendental service, which leads him ultimately to get free from perpetual inhabitation in the material world and to be promoted to the transcendental world to become one of the liberated associates of the Lord in the kingdom of God.
Here, the Lord is telling him that even a little bit of devotional service, one can come to the spiritual world, can get my association. Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, that even a little beginning in this endeavor saves one from the greatest type of fear. So devotional service is never lost. Whatever we may be able to do, even a little beginning, in the next life we are given chance to begin from that point and then gradually go back home, back to Godhead. Devotional service is not whimsically performed. It's not that we make up our own ways. No, because we don't know the Lord, we don't know how to please Him, so we follow the direction of the representative of the Lord, the bona fide spiritual master, because he knows how to please the Lord. So for under his direction, we will be able to please the Lord. Matirmai nibha dhyayam.
Matir mai nibhadya madhyam.
Na vipadyeta karhichet.
Na vipadyeta karchita.
I'm sorry. Praja sarga nirodhepi.
Pracha sarga nirodhepi.
Smitischa mad anugrahat.
Smritischa mad anugrahat. Translation. Intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation, as well as at the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy. Purport. Devotional service rendered to the personality of Godhead never goes in vain. Since the personality of Godhead is eternal, intelligence applied in his service or anything done in his relation is also permanent. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that such transcendental service rendered unto the personality of Godhead accumulates birth after birth, and when the devotee is fully matured, the total service counted together makes him eligible to enter into the association of the personality of Godhead. Such accumulation of God's service is never vanquished, but increases till fully matured.
So the results of devotional service are eternal, never lost. They continue life after life. Material knowledge is lost. We have to again study. Even if one has done PhD in one life, one dies. Again, when he is born as a baby, again have to go to school, again study alphabet, again go to, begin from the beginning. But devotional service is not like that. So Krishna is saying that the intelligence, which is spiritualized to whatever degree, that remains. And even when there is annihilation, it will continue to remain in the next creation because it's a long, long time. So we can see because this is happening in the previous day of Brahma. Then there is dissolution happening in the lower parts of the universe. And then when the creation again happens, then he's born as Nārada Muni. So even for a very, very long time, devotional service, the results always remain, never lost. Tavat uktvo pararam tanmahat.
Itavat uktvo paramatan
Bhutam nabholingam alingam ishwaram.
Bhutam nabhulingam alingam ishwaram.
Aham chattam tasmai mahatam mahiyase.
Aham chatasmai mahatam mahiyashe.
Krishna vanamam vidate nukampita.
Shrishna vanam vidahe nukampita. Translation. Then that supreme authority, personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. Purport. That the personality of Godhead was not seen but only heard does not make any difference. That a personality of Godhead produced the four Vedas by his breathing, and he is seen and realized through the transcendental sound of the Vedas. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita is a sound representation of the Lord, and yet there is no difference in identity. The conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound.
So Narad Muni couldn't see him, but he was hearing him. But he's hearing, Prabhupada is saying, by hearing, by chanting, we will be able to see him. So Narad Muni is offering his obeisances to the Supreme Lord because he's there, even though he couldn't see him. So Bhagavad Gita, the instructions which is left behind for us, is the sound representation of Krishna. By following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, we are being with Krishna. Because there's no difference. By hearing from Bhagavatam, we are being with Krishna. This is the absolute platform. Namani anantasya hritta tripapathan.
Namani anantasya hatatrapa pathan.
Guyani bhadrani kritani cha smaran.
Guyani bhadrani kritani cha smaran.
Kamparyatam stushtamana gat sraha.
Gaham prayatastam tustamanagata vra.
Alam pratikshan vim mado vimatsara.
Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsara. Translation. Thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. Purport. The life of a sincere devotee of the Lord is thus explained in a nutshell by Narada Muni by his personal example. Such a devotee, after his initiation by the Lord or his bona fide representative, takes very seriously chanting of the glories of the Lord and traveling all over the world so that others may also hear the glories of the Lord. Such devotees have no desire for material gain. They are conducted by one single desire to go back to Godhead. This awaits them in due course on quitting the material body because they have the highest aim of life going back to Godhead. They are never envious of anyone, nor are they proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, and according to personal capacity to distribute the message for others' welfare without motive of material gain.
So here Prabhupada is saying that Narad Muni is an example of a preacher. He's the Acharya, he's a preacher, he's hearing and chanting the name. He's traveling all over the world. He's remembering the glories of the Lord. And he's traveling all over the world. He's humble, he's unenvious. He wants everyone to go back to the spiritual world. So he's giving the holy name to everyone. He's spreading the glories of the Lord, preaching the glories of the Lord to everyone. That's why he's called non-envious. You know, that he wants everyone to go back to the spiritual world. Humble because he does not feel that he is qualified, but that's his desire. He wants to go back to the spiritual world, be with Krishna, engage in pure devotional service. So it all begins by the association with the pure devotee. Evam Krishna Mater Brahman
Evam Krishna Mater Brahman
Na Saktasya Malatmana
Nashak Tasya Malatmana
Kala Pradurabhut Kale
Kala Pradhura Bahut Kale
Tadit Saudamani Yatha.
Tatit Saudamani Yatha. Translation. And so, O Brahmana Vyāsadeva, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Purport. To be fully absorbed in the thought of Krishna means clearance of the material dearths or hankerings. As a very rich man has no hankerings for small petty things, so also a devotee of Lord Krishna, who is guaranteed to pass on to the kingdom of God, where life is eternal, fully cognizant and blissful, naturally has no hankerings for pretty material things, which are like dolls or shadows of the reality and are without permanent value. That is the sign of spiritually enriched persons. And in due course of time, when a pure devotee is completely prepared, all of a sudden the change of body occurs, which is commonly called death. And for the pure devotee, such a change takes place exactly like lightning and illumination follow simultaneously. That is to say, a devotee simultaneously changes his material body and develops a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. Even before death, a pure devotee has no material affection due to his body being spiritualized like a red hot iron in contact with fire.
So Narad Muni, he's chanting the holy names of Krishna. He's completely absorbed in Krishna. His mind is completely absorbed. He has no material desire. He has no material attachments. Because he has a higher purpose. He's going back home, back to Godhead. He's attached to Krishna. When we are attached to a higher thing, then we give up a lower thing. We get used to having like sweets made of like real ghee or something. Then you don't want to have sweets made of the cheaper ones. Just like that. So the pure devotee has a higher taste for the spiritual world, for the spiritual, for devotional service. And so his death is called lightning and illumination. He's giving up the body, he's getting a spiritual body. Prabhupada is mentioning that even when the pure devotee, he's inside the material world, in the material body, but his material body is actually spiritual. How's the example that you put a iron rod inside the fire? It's going to get hot. It takes the quality of fire. So someone may argue, no, this is still iron. This is not fire, the hot iron rod. Well, Prabhupada would say then, okay, touch the hot iron rod. If you say this is not fire, then touch it. So it takes the quality of the fire and becomes fiery. So the pure devotee, he's engaged in devotional service. So his body is also spiritualized. His subtle body, his mind is completely spiritualized. His consciousness is spiritualized. There's no material desires there, no material consciousness there. Prayujyamane mayitam
Prayujyamane Mayitam
Shuddham Bhagavatim Tanum
Suddham Bhagavatim Tanum
Arbadha Karma Nirvano
Arbadha Karma Nirvano
Nyapatat Pancha Bhautika.
Niyapatat Panchabhautika. Translation. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work, karma, stopped. Purport. Informed by the personality of Godhead that he would be awarded a transcendental body befitting the Lord's association, Narada got his spiritual body as soon as he quit his material body. This transcendental body is free from material affinity and invested with 3 primary transcendental qualities, namely eternity, freedom from material modes, and freedom from reactions of tuitive activities. The material body is always afflicted with the lack of these three qualities. A devotee's body becomes at once surcharged with the transcendental qualities as soon as he is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. It acts like the magnetic influence of a touchstone upon iron. The influence of transcendental devotional service is like that. Therefore, change of the body means stoppage of the reaction of three qualitative modes of material nature upon the pure devotee. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Dhruv Maharaja and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the personality of Godhead face to face, apparently in the same body. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendent. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that beginning from the Indra Gopa germ up to the great Indra king of heaven, all living beings are subjected to the law of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality, the personality of Godhead.
So here Narad Muni, he gives up his material body made up of earth, water, air, fire, ether, and he's gotten a spiritual body. So we can see he's proof. It's not that after liberation one becomes like nothing or doesn't exist anymore. No, one gets a spiritual body. Narad Muni's body is spiritual, transcendental. And in this transcendental body, he's associating with God. He's seeing him, he's speaking to him. So it's the material body that is under the control of the modes of nature, under the control of the laws of karma, but not the transcendental body. The spiritual body is not under the modes of nature. That's why it's called liberated. Not under the control of the laws of karma. So a devotee has no karma, a pure devotee, because he's on the liberated platform. Here Prabhupada is saying that the Goswamis, they are writing in their scriptures that even devotees like Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, their bodies were spiritual. That's how they were able to see God. Otherwise, how were they able to see God? So this is what Prabhupada is saying, that the Goswamis, this is the Goswami's opinion. And Brahma Samhita, beginning from Indra Gopa. Indra Gop, one may wonder, oh, it's a very good name, but it's a germ actually. And Lord Indra is a king of heaven. Because everyone is in the material body, so everyone is bound by law of karma, bound by the three modes of nature. So getting action, reaction. But the pure devotee is not. His body is spiritualized. His desires are spiritual, so his subtle body is spiritual, his consciousness is spiritual. All this is happening by the mercy of the Lord. Just like we heard that Bharat Maharaj, it's not that because it was not like a law of karma that he got this dear body, but it was like a personal kind of a wake-up call from Krishna to him, that, hey, you got too attached. Wake up, come back to me. So, kalpanta idam adaya.
Kalpante idam adaya.
Yeah.
Shayane bhasi udhanvata.
Sayane Mabashi Udan Vata.
Shishyeshor anupranam.
Shishesor Anupranam.
Vivishentar aham vipo.
Vivishe natar aham vibho. Does anyone else want to read? Or I can continue. Translation. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements, and I also entered through his breathing. Purport. Narada is known as the son of Brahma, and Lord Krishna is known as the son of Vasudeva. The personality of Godhead and his liberated devotees like Narada appear in the material world by the same process. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the birth and activities of the Lord are all transcendental. Therefore, according to authorized opinion, the birth of Narada as the son of Brahma is also a transcendental pastime. His appearance and disappearance are practically on the same level as that of the Lord. The Lord and devotees are therefore simultaneously one and different as spiritual entities. They belong to the same category of transcendence.
So Krishna is called the son of Vasudeva. Narad Muni is called the son of Lord Brahma. But these are all transcendental pastimes. They are spiritual. Krishna is saying Janma Karma Cha Mai Divyam. They're all transcendental. So Krishna's appearance is transcendental. His pure devotee's appearance is also transcendental. Like Lord Brahma, he created Narad Muni by himself. He didn't need the need of anyone to create. He didn't need like a female, to get to born Narad. No, just created him. So it's transcendental, spiritual. Narad Muni's body form is spiritual, not material. So as part and parcel, the Lord's form is transcendental, Narad Muni's body is transcendental, but they're in the same category, but of course the quantity is different. The Lord is unlimited. So when the breathing in happens of Lord Narayan, everyone goes again in the body of Lord Narayan. So Narad Muni is also entered in the body of Lord Narayan. Brahmaji is entering the body of Lord Narayan and Narad Muni also through his breathing. Sahasra Yuga Paryante.
Sahasra Yuga Paryante.
Uthayedam Sisrikshata.
Uthayedam Shirshata.
Marichi Mishra Rasaya.
Marichi Mishra Rasya.
Pranebhyo Hamcha Jagyare.
Pranebhyo Ham Cha Jajre. Translation. After 404, how do we say this?
4,300,000,000.
4
4,300,000,000.
Okay. After 4,300,000,000 solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. Purport. The duration of a day in the life of Brahma is 4,000,000,000, 32 million, 320 million solar years. This is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita. So for this period, Brahmaji rests in Yoga Nidra within the body of the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after the sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narada also appears. This means that Narada appears in the same transcendental body, just as a man awakes from sleep, same body. Sri Narada is eternally free to move in all paths of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings.
So this is a partial dissolution, like the day of Brahma. Then Brahma's night happened. So Brahma's night happened, so everyone entered in the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, because the universe is still there. And Brahma's also gone to sleep. Everyone's sleeping in the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And when the day is coming, so like how we go to sleep in our beds. They've gone into sleep in Garbhodakshay Vishnu. They've gotten up in the same body. When we sleep at night, in the morning, we wake up in the same body. So Narad Muni is also awake in the same body, his transcendental body. Because we heard previous verse that he got a transcendental body. So the transcendental body, there's no difference between soul and the body itself. You know, how we have a difference right now. Our soul, we are inside this material body. But Narad Muni, he has a transcendental body. No difference between body and soul. Antarbahishcha lokam strin.
Antarbahishcha lokam strin.
Paryemi ashkandita vrata.
Paryemi ashkandita vrata.
Anugrahan Mahavishnur.
Anugrahan Mahavishnur.
Avighata gati kvachet.
Avighata kvachit. Translation. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there are three divisions of the material spheres, namely the Urdhvaloka, topmost planets, Madhyaloka, midway planets, and Adholoka, downward planets. Beyond Urdhvaloka planets, that is to say above and Brahmaloka, are the material coverings of the universes, and above that is the spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets inhabited by God Himself, along with His associates, who are all eternally liberated living entities. Sri Narada Muni could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of creation. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by the three material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these three material modes, and thus he can travel anywhere unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of the Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down, but the materialists, that is, the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by their respective modes of nature. The rishis, as above mentioned, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in the Narsimha Purana. Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruitive work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatana are authorities in philosophical speculations, but Sri Narada Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. All the great authorities in the devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni in the order of the Narada Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha.
So he is a transcendental spaceman, traveling spaceman. He has no restriction. He can go to the material world, he can go to spiritual world, anywhere, because he has a spiritual body. So he is being an example that the devotee, he becomes independent as the Lord. He can come and go as he likes. No visa required, no change of body required. Go to any planet. So he's independent like the Lord by the mercy of the Lord, because he's a devotee. So a devotee is always dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Whereas the other processes, one is depending on their own effort, the fruitive worker, the philosophical speculator. So they're depending on their own effort. But the devotee, he engages in devotional service, but he's dependent on the mercy of the Lord. And by the Lord's mercy, he can get a spiritual body and he can go to the spiritual world. So here Prabhupada is explaining even Marichi, he's authority in fruitive work, karma. So he's not authorized to go. Sanak and Sanatan, they are authorities in Gyan, philosophical speculation. Although we do hear that they go for traveling in the Vaikuntha planets. That's how they smelt the tulsi leaves of the Lord. So maybe they can travel, but not as freely as Narad Muni. Like we have so many descriptions of Narad Muni all the while. He's going to see the Lord, he's on this planet or he's on that planet, everywhere. And Prabhupada is saying that the devotees, all the devotees who are following in the footsteps of Narad Muni can also enter into the kingdom of God, following in the footsteps of the great devotees. Because the devotees are in the spiritual world, by following in their footsteps, we can also reach the spiritual world. The footsteps are there, we follow. Oh, let me see. Like how the Mother Yashoda, she followed these footsteps of Damodar. Where is he? Where is he? She went looking, following the footsteps, and she found him in the room. So following the footsteps of the pure devotees, they are in the spiritual world. So we follow their footsteps, we will also be in the spiritual world. So here by Narad Muni's example, we are hearing that how anyone, everyone, no matter where a person is coming from, no qualification needed, no age restriction needed, no education qualification needed. Everyone can become a pure devotee, get a spiritual body. Dev Dattam Imam Binam.
Dev Dattam Imam Vinam
Svar Brahma Vibhushitam.
Swar Brahma Vibhushitam
Murchyaitva Harikatham.
Murchyatitya Titva Harikatham
Gaya Manas Charami Aham.
Gaya Manas Charami Aham.
So of course, nobody can become Narad Muni. Nobody can become someone else. We can revive our own spiritual body. Each person has its own spiritual form, can revive that. So
Translation. And thus I traveled constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with the transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. Purport. The musical stringed instrument called the Veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana, and this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental without a tinge of material inebriety. The seven singing meters, namely Sa, Satya, Ra, Rashaba, Ga, Gandhara, Ma, Madhyama, Pa, Panchama, Dha, Daivata, and Ni, Nishada, are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada Deva is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument, and thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. Following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Muni, a self realized soul in the material world should also properly use the sound meters, namely Sare, Gama, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing the glories of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita.
So Narad Muni is saying he got a Veena from Lord Krishna, and this Veena is transcendental, is spiritual. So the sound which is coming from this instrument is also spiritual, not material. Because Krishna, his name, form, paraphernalia, all spiritual, all transcendental. So Narad Muni's Veena is producing transcendental sound. Prabhupada is saying Sarigama, these meters, they are also transcendental. And they are meant to sing transcendental songs, songs in the glorification of the Lord. So here this is what Prabhupada is saying, that one should use this to glorify the Lord, singing the glories of the Lord by these meters. Pragayata svaviryani.
Pragayata Shvavidyani
Tirthapada priyashrava.
Tirthapadha Priyashravaha
Ahuta eva me shigram.
Ahuta Eva Me Shikram
Darshanam yati chetase.
Darshanam Yati Et Chetase. Translation. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart, as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. Purport. The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and the sound vibrations thereof.
Sorry.
As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in loving transcendental service can experience the presence of the Lord at every moment. It is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is a natural instinct, and the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology because psychological characteristics visible in the individual soul are but reflections of the same psychology in the absolute Lord. The only difference is that the Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by the pure devotees chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture or of his glorification, the two things being identical. Srila Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting.
So Narada Muni is saying that he chants the glories of the Lord, and whenever he chants, he sees the Lord in his heart. That he's chanting, and it's as if he's calling the Lord, and then the Lord he can see the Lord in his heart. So he wants to always be with the Lord. He wants to always see the Lord. So he's always chanting the glories of the Lord. So Prabhupada is pointing out that the name, form, pastimes of the Lord are not different from him. By chanting his names, one is in the presence of the Lord if one is chanting the pure name. So the pure devotee who's chanting the pure name is with the Lord. He's always in Golok Vrindavan, the pure devotee. Prabhupada is pointing out, we have this psychology. Somebody is speaking about us. We also want to like to hear. Oh, what are you saying about me? What are you saying? Let me hear. So Prabhupada is saying, we have this psychology, but in the pure form, it also exists in Krishna, because anything we have, it's coming from Krishna. So he also here has it. He's also enjoying hearing his name. So he also is pleased to appear in the heart of the devotee. It's a loving exchange. Like when we love someone, we like to speak about them, they like to be with us, they like to hear from us. It's like a sweet exchange. So this is this sweet exchange Narad Muni is having with Krishna. He's chanting his glories, Krishna is reciprocating, he's being in the heart of Narad. They both are enjoying. So there's etadi atur chittanam
Etade atuchitanam
matra sparshe chayamahu
matra sparshe chayamuhu
bhava sindhu plavo drishto
bhava sindhu plava drishtu
haricharyanu varnanam.
haricharyanu varnanam. Translation. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nescience on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Purport. The symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something, or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses, but as these things are exercised under the influence of the external illusory energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full with cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord Himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artist, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord. with his eternal associates like the Gopis and Lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly men, but at the same time extraordinarily because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nescience, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni, and we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord.
So Prabhupada is saying we can never give up thinking, feeling, and willing. We're always thinking of someone, we're always speaking about someone. And when we are thinking or speaking of something or someone material, it keeps us in the material world. In fact, it increases our anxieties, increases our fear. But if we can speak about Krishna, think about Krishna, then Narada Muni is saying he's a personal example that he became spiritual. He got a spiritual body. No more in the material world, no more fear, no more anxiety. He's saying he's personally experienced that he can get liberated, get a spiritual body by constant chanting of the pastimes of the Lord. So we are being advised also to follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni, like constant hearing and chanting of the pastimes of the Lord from Bhagavad Gita, from Bhagavatam. Then we can also go to the spiritual world. So we'll stop here for today. There's not much left of this chapter. Read 3 verses, I think, actually. But we can read on Monday morning. Or what do you all suggest? Because
Yeah, we
it's
can.
Yeah, Monday mornings.
Monday morning. Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.